What's going on, everybody? Gonna make a quick video. Gonna wrap it up in under 7 minutes, hopefully. This is the first chess trap or trick that I ever learned. It was from a Paul Morphy game, and it starts off with the king's pawn opening. Typically, the main move here, most common, is knight to f3, and if they make the mistake of marching up their f3 pawn, you can go ahead and capture that pawn and you have nothing to worry about. Computer puts it at +1 analysis, plus 1.7, and if they capture it, you're up 5 points. You just lost a knight, which is, you should be -3. Plus a pawn, you should be -2, and you're +5. That's 7 point difference. And the reason is, you can come in with your queen and check them. And they have two options. They can march up their king, but we'll cover the other one first. If they block with the pawn, you can take the center pawn on e5 with a check, and regardless if they move their king or block the check with their queen, bishop, or knight, you snag the rook and you will have an excellent game from here. The other option that they have is if they march up their king. Same thing. You take the e5 pawn with a check. And from here, they don't have an option. They have to sidestep. When they sidestep, you bring in your bishop, rechecking, getting more pieces into the fight. They have two options here. They can block with the pawn. That's when you take the pawn with a check. And then they would have three options. They can either kill your bishop, which would be horrible for them. Easy game. Or they could block with the bishop, and that would be a game over. Or they could run, and that would also be game over. But it's a little more tricky to know that line. If they run to the g6 square, with perfect play on their behalf, it'll take 11 moves to nail the coffin. But if they do something like bring in a knight, let's say, well, you get a move first. Your move when they move the king would be to check them again with the queen. Once they march to the h6, you march your h pawn. Now, as I said, with perfect play, it's 9 more moves from here. But if they did something like brought out a knight or something, you could wrap it up quickly. Simply march up the pawn, check them with the bishop. They're very limited options. They could either block with the pawn. If that's the case, you recapture, and they have one move. And if that's the case, what's the final move? I forget what it is. It's checkmate on f7. If they decided to block with the queen, even better. Checkmate. With perfect play, it would look like this. If they find the amazing move, which I highly doubt they would, of queen to e7, it's going to be a real pain in the ass to checkmate, but it is possible. That's when you push d4, check them with your bishop. If they block with the pawn, you recapture with the bishop. They back out, you take the queen. They recapture, you recheck, push them back to the h6 square. And now you're marching up your g-pawn to finish the deal. And they would have to find another amazing move of pushing their d-pawn, activating their light-squared bishop, and that's when you would check them with that g-pawn. They would have to recapture with their bishop, suicide it. If not, it's going to be real easy. That's when you recapture. They have to recapture. It's your only move. You come in, check them with the rook. It's guarded by the queen. They have one move, and that's when you drill the nail all the way in with bishop e2. So don't let that long line confuse you. I mean, if you get to this point right here, you're going to have a solid game. You don't have to worry about finishing it as efficiently as possible and doing a checkmate in 7. You know, I mean, you're going to win any way you have to, unless if they're 1,000 times better than you, and then you're probably still going to win. You're just so far ahead. But it's one of the first traps I learned, and it's a beaut. I don't think it has a name. I guess it's coming up as King's Pawn Game, the Damiano defense, which is not good. Don't play the Damiano defense. Have a good one. Hope it helps.